Hello, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the fourth day South by Southwest 2021 online this year. This is Business Finland's booth at South by Southwest. Business Finland is the Finnish government's innovation funding arm. And in Finland, we fund tech startups. And here in the US, we are talking to US businesses on how to collaborate with the technology companies we have in Finland and even do R&D yourselves in Finland. We have a long list of incentives and supports that we can offer you if you're interested in coming to the European market. Today we have a really fascinating topic. We're talking about two things at the same time: space technologies and environmental sustainability. But before we go to the actual topic, house rules, everyone is muted, but you can type in questions via the Q&A chat window. We're not able to unmute you, so questions in written format only. We will be taking questions after the panel session, but keep them coming as our panelists are talking and you think of a question. Just type it in and we'll moderate the Q&A later. This session is recorded and a recording will be provided to all of you. So let's start. The UN Sustainable Development Goals. It's a collection of 17 global goals that were set in 2015 at the UN General Assembly. It's commonly known as Agenda 2030. UN is keeping track on countries, how they're performing against these goals. Finland is number 3 on the list right now, and US is number 31, which is why we need all of these new clean technologies to bring US up on that list. Speaking of ranking also, I want to celebrate the fact that Finland was chosen as the happiest country in the world today, 4th year in a row. So that's something to celebrate. All right, Finland and space technologies. Let's start by introducing our Finnish panelist, Mr. Tero Vauraste. If you want to turn on your camera so we can see you. Hello, good evening to Finland, Tero. He is
good morning to the United States.
Thank you. You're the Senior Advisor and Regional Director of Europe for Iceye, a Finnish hugely successful space tech company. You're a Master of Science, Regional Director of Europe of Iceye. Iceye itself is launching and operating a constellation of small radar imaging satellites, providing access to timely and reliable Earth observation data. Since Iceye's initial start in 2012, Mr. Vauraste has supported the founders in terms of market approaches and platforming the technology tests. Officially joining Iceye since October 2020, Vauraste is the Regional Director Europe, responsible for the European clients, including cooperation with the European Space Agency and Business Finland. Prior to Iceye, Mr. Vauraste has served as a Naval and Coast Guard officer and held various CEO and senior executive positions within security, aviation, automotive, maritime, rail, logistics, and Arctic industries. He's also held a long-term position of Chair and Vice Chair of the Arctic Economic Council. He is a Global Fellow at the Woodrow Wilson Center Polar Program in Washington, D.C. Welcome to the panel, Tero. Tell us a little bit more about Iceye, what you guys are doing over in Finland and Europe.
Yeah, thank you very much, Petra, and good morning, everyone. Again, very pleased to meet you here online, and greetings from Helsinki, Finland, where there is already evening. So Iceye is the world's first synthetic aperture radar micro satellite constellation company. Synthetic aperture radar means that you can have an image during the day, during the night, whether it's snowfall or whether it's foggy, in all types of conditions, because it doesn't need optical light to get the image. And how do we do that? We do that with the world's largest microsat satellite constellation. We've already launched 10 satellites we do it like on a persistent monitoring mode with high enough frequency, which gives you a fast revisit and a quick return to the same location, with a high enough agility with multiple locations and targets, with an excellent resolution down to 25 centimeters, with a good sensitivity. The images are very sensitive to changes. Excellent coverage. You can see what you need it and when you need it, with a rapid delivery of just a couple of hours and even less for that. So we are going down to an average time from acquisition to delivery in like 2 to 4 hours within the next year and a half. We are planning to launch more than 10 satellites within the next year or two. We have funding secured for that, and the idea of Iceye has begun actually with the Arctic issues, as you recall from the name, but now we serve clients globally with a proven track record.
Thank you. It's fascinating. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Let me bring up our second panelist, Joe, if you want to turn on your camera. From Maxar here in Colorado, we have Mr. Joe Walsh. You're the International Business Development Manager at Maxar Technologies. Maxar specializes in manufacturing communication and Earth observation satellites, robotics, and spacecraft, as well as delivering satellite imagery products and geospatial services globally for government and commercial customers. In his 5 years at Maxar, Joe has supported the evolving needs of Maxar's US and international government customer base. Prior to joining Maxar, Joe held a variety of roles in the banking, construction, and government research sectors, leveraging satellite imagery at each stop to help evaluate risk, streamline operations, and map critical infrastructure. You hold a Master of Business Administration from University of Colorado in Boulder. Welcome on board, Joe. I read a little bit about what Maxar is doing, but tell us in more detail what you're doing currently there.
Thank you, Petra. It's a pleasure to join the panel. Appreciate the invitation. Tero, it's also a pleasure to meet you and an honor to sit next to you and chat.
Likewise, Joe.
Virtually. Thank you. So yeah, as many of you have likely noticed on the invitation for this and the overview, I'm not Madison. Unfortunately, Madison, my colleague who was intending to participate in this panel, was unable to join. So I'm going to do my best to kind of fill in and provide an overview of Maxar and how we're supporting.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm going to ask Anne, you're sharing your screen. If you want to unshare, please. We're looking at your desktop here. Okay, go on, Joe. Thanks.
Oh, thank you. So I'll do my best here to kind of provide a Maxar overview and how we're supporting the disaster response and environmental sustainability. So Maxar applies leading space infrastructure and Earth intelligence capabilities to deliver innovative solutions for both commercial and government customers. We help our customers and partners monitor, understand, and navigate our changing planet, deliver a global broadband communications, and explore and advance the use of space. So similar to Iceye, we own and operate a constellation of electro-optical satellites, a little bit different than synthetic aperture radar, but we can get into that more in this conversation. We also have more than 90 communication satellites on orbit. We've built robotic arms for 6 of NASA's Mars landers and rovers, and we're also proud to support NASA's Artemis mission that's upcoming in the coming years. If you don't know Maxar, you're probably familiar with us without even knowing it. Our technology can be found in the mapping applications on your phone that you rely on to get where you need to go. In today's case, you're probably tuning in from home, so you didn't have to use it. But in normal situations at South by Southwest, many people would probably be using it to navigate to where they need to be. You're also likely seeing us, in the news when disaster strikes or there's a humanitarian crisis. We're supporting that aspect, and we also support the U.S. government and friendly nations by providing situational awareness for troops, intelligence analysts, and first responders.
Thanks, Joe. I think Anne is having a technical difficulty there. We're still seeing your screen. I actually have, okay, there we go, thank you. I have a funny story. Last weekend I moved home from New Orleans, Louisiana to Denver, Colorado, and we did it over the weekend with a historic snowstorm hitting the Denver. I think it was the fourth most severe snowstorm in the history. So we were driving in 2 cars, and we actually had a friend over in Finland who was looking at the satellite images of the storm moving up, and he was giving the first car directions on how to navigate through Texas and New Mexico based on the satellite images, how it was moving. And then we had walkie-talkies communicating that information back to the second car. So even, you know, in the cases like this, satellite images can help. Okay, so we are talking about natural disasters. Satellite imaging and data solutions are used for monitoring disasters such as floods, hurricanes, oil spills, forest fires. Being able to see and analyze the Earth from space enables industrial commercial applications, as well as public and NGO work. So let me start with you, Joe. You talked a little bit already about your technology. You mentioned electro-optical. Can you give us more detail on your solution, please?
Yeah, sure. So one thing that I kind of wanted to kind of hone in on is some of the things that we're excited about in the near future. So we're actually excited to launch 6 additional satellites to our constellation. Those satellites are our WorldView Legion satellites, and they'll be launching 2 of which in September, and then 4 shortly thereafter. And these, why we're really excited about this is that they will, you know, drastically improve our ability to image areas of greatest change on Earth. So we'll be able to image some areas up to 15 times throughout the day from sun up to sundown. And that really enables more persistent monitoring, near real-time change detection, and timely analysis. You know, these satellites are also, you know, excellent at these large area collections, kind of what Tero alluded to earlier, that support mapping missions and the ability to kind of really gather insight into a large scenes where there's impact and issues occurring. So this dramatic increase in capacity and revisit will improve our ability to keep pace with change, as we all know that's intensifying, you know, in recent years. So with the addition of WorldView Legion, it will help support our humanitarian work so that organizations can better monitor frequent change and support agricultural initiatives during the growing season, conduct fine-scale yield estimations, and really be able to provide a little more visibility into, you know, human mobility, natural disasters, and other crises. But, you know, with this, you know, comes a big data problem, right? So, you know, we collect just Maxar 75 terabytes of data each day, and that's just us, right? There's many other, you know, data providers in kind of the Earth observation space, but also, you know, providing, you know, insights into what can be happening on the ground from other providers. So it's really important that you're able to make sense of these data challenges for you know, the users we support. So we've, you know, made some investments in our, you know, proprietary AI and ML technologies and pipelines to allow, you know, imagery analysts to move across or to operate more effectively by, you know, streamline the way that they can get information into these areas of conflict and change.
Thank you. Wow, that's very impressive. Let's move on to Iceye. Tero, you mentioned, and I know the SAR technology that you guys developed is really truly groundbreaking, but also the size of your product. Tell us more about the technology that you're developing.
Yeah, so the Sar technology actually isn't that groundbreaking. It's been existing for decades, but it's groundbreaking on a microsatellite. So that was unexpected only a couple of years back because of technical issues. There's been Sar technology available in the, we call it the old space satellites, for decades already, and in some other types of constellations. But having it on a satellite which weighs less than 100 kilograms and is able to go within the height of 500 kilometers over the globe for 15 times per day gives you an excellent revisit opportunity. And one of the main issues which I described in the Sar technology is that it doesn't need any daylight, or it doesn't need any this type of activity because of it uses the area waves which goes through the clouds day and night. So it gives you an image whenever you need it. The size of the constellation is a key area where we provide opportunities and help for the natural disasters, which we are going to down in a detailed manner in a while, but especially in areas like flooding and landslides, you can do the coherent change detection, and we are working on those technologies ourselves as well as doing that with some partners. Iceye has a subsidiary in the United States as well, so we're very active on the US area and working over there. So it's not a Finnish company anymore; it's a global company with a great existence in the US as well.
That's great to hear. Okay, Tero talked about the images a little bit. I know Joe Maxar is running something called the Open Data Program. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So, the theme today is about, space technologies and addressing, natural disasters and environmental responsibility or sustainability. As I mentioned earlier, my colleague Madison, who's unable to join, she leads up our open data or coordinates our open data program, as well as supports our work with in support of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So I'll do my best to characterize some of the work that she does there, but it is really exciting stuff. In the wake of natural disasters and other crises, first responders, need timely, information and accurate information to best support these affected communities. They need to know which areas are affected, the extent and degree of the impacts, and the best routes to navigate these, often compromised environments to address the most immediate issues first. And to support these demands, Maxar publicly releases satellite imagery and associated analysis where applicable in this open data program to partner organizations like Team Rubicon, the Red Cross, the Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team, and NetHope and others, so they can quickly integrate the data into their workflows and better plan and deploy resources. Just for a little bit of perspective, in 2020, we activated the program for 16 events affecting 30 countries, releasing over 1 million square kilometers of imagery. For context, that's about the size of the state of Texas and Alaska combined, actually a little bit more than that. So for those US viewers, contextual purposes. And then, we released that data under kind of an open license that allows for, non-commercial use. And we've been doing this since 2017 and, 76 events since then. So it's a pretty exciting program that we're kind of proud to partner with those response agencies.
Okay, you mentioned.
And can I just make a comment on that? So this open data is like a major trend today, and the work Maxar is doing is great on that. Iceye has just published a couple of months ago 18,000 images which are available for the public. So I urge everyone here to go and have a look into Iceye website and have your area of interest over there and go and capture your image. And we also work with the European Space Agency Copernicus program where data is available on an open basis.
Yeah, I actually promised Madison that I would send out the link to the open data program, and then I'll get the link to your images as well. Well, we can send Good. It to the viewers so they can get familiar with it. I want to ask Joe, you mentioned you covered 16 events last year. So how do you choose the events that you cover and when to support? Because there are disasters happening all over the world.
Yeah, certainly. So we're from a resource standpoint, it would be tough to kind of support all of these. So we've kind of put together a protocol or a set of criteria to review in kind of determining when and where we support these sort of things. So we have a first look service that must activate, and that kind of organizes the tasking of the fresh imagery over the affected areas and provides. That service provides, before and after imagery when activated. And then, our Open Data Committee, which is, a group of internal employees, will, at the onset, will review kind of the the type of the event. So is it a sudden onset like a earthquake, a fire, or a hurricane? A slow onset like disease outbreaks or famine, and then protracted ones like pandemics or socio-political transitions, and then also weigh that against the scope from a geographic standpoint, but also humanitarian impact and expectation of need. So once those criteria are established, then they'll if approved, we'll provide that imagery during or pre, post, and during. And then if applicable, like I mentioned earlier, we can add AI and ML derived insights from it if that's relevant.
Okay, I bet everyone's dying to see some of that imagery. And I'm gonna ask you to start sharing the Iceye images. And while you're pulling up the images, I wanna ask Tero, you mentioned 18,000 images you posted. Is that something that you're doing continuously, or was it a one-time batch?
For this time, it was a one-time batch, but obviously our images are collected on a day-to-day basis, and there are more releases happening on a monthly basis. So of course, we are developing the archive all the time.
That's great. Okay, we can see your pictures. Go ahead.
Excellent. So here we go with the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and I would just like to tie the Iceye's activities into the goals. And obviously, it's number 13, which is climate action, because we are dealing here with natural disasters and the potential response to those. Iceye has been very active in the area of flooding. You will soon see an image of that, and we work in collaboration with international authorities as well as insurance companies to meet the needs of quick flooding situations. Number 14, life below water, is obviously an area where we work to have opportunities to survey the maritime areas in cases, for instance, like oil and chemical spills. And number 15, life on land, obviously when we survey the land masses with our customers to help in issues like vegetations, forestry, deforestation, and other potential areas. So now we could go and have a look into the images themselves. So could we have the next slide, please, which will take us down to Grand Bahama. This image is taken early morning on the September 2nd. And this is from the Hurricane Dorian, which I think most of you recall, when it was stalled over the island of Grand Bahamas. And as you can see, the coastline over here is on the yellow, and around 60% of the island was flooded. So what happened actually was that most of the other service providers were imaging the Abaco Island to the east, because the prediction models showed that that's where it's going to happen. But it's about nature, and it didn't happen there, and it went to this island. And because we are able to control the full chain of our systems, we were able to shift our satellites over here, do the instrumentation and processing, and to adjust the image to have a look in over here. And this was covered with more than 600 medias, with the potential of reaching 1.5 billion people, and now you guys in addition to that. So this was basically because we were able to do it on a very, very agile basis. We do this information in collaboration with the geographical information, so you can have an idea that for instance, how deep the expected flood is on a certain road or a certain area. So this is about flooding. Then we can go to the next one, please, which takes us again down to what's happening at the seas. And now we're going to the Gulf of Finland. There was a recent oil spill in June 2019, which took place on 20th of June. There was a bypassing vessel quite near to an archipelago area, and this oil spill was leaking from this vessel. You can see the vessels has small spots in here, and the areas which are dark are oil spill areas. And you can also see the coverage, so you can make measurements how large the area of the oil spill here is. So this gives you an idea how to combine the information of a SAR image with an information considering the vessels and other information. So it gives you assistance for the oil spill response.
May I
Sure.
the area calculation, is that something that is from the Iceye tool, or is that a third-party tool that does the?
So this is from the Iceye tool package. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Impressive.
Okay, so these images are from the sea, but there also things happen on the land, and quite severe things happen on the land, as the next image is going to show. So from Bahamas to the Gulf of Finland, now we go to Iceland with the next image. And as you recall, actually, Iceland is expecting a volcano eruption, and this has been expected for several weeks already. But this has happened also quite recently, like a month ago. And this is from an area called the Seyðisfjörður, where there was a severe landslide. So more than 10 buildings were destroyed. Luckily, no one was injured in this one. But this image here, where you see the box, shows you the landslide area after the soil was removed. So what the imagery here enables you is to persist monitor the locations in areas like this and do change detection when you collect an image on a daily basis, which basically the Iceye constellation gives you an opportunity to do. So we do it on the oceans, we do it on the seas, we do it in islands, we do it on land areas, and these are really to help with the UN Sustainable Goal developments and to make sure that everybody would be secure with the help of the Iceye images.
Thank you. This is so fascinating. Okay, let's start to pull up the Maxar images as well. We have other types of use cases there. I believe these are from the US.
Yeah. You know, as Tero alluded, there's 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and there's actually many targets, as you mentioned, related to disaster response and management as part of 10 of those 17 goals. And Maxar as a whole, we help support work across all 17 development goals, but we have particular strengths supporting no poverty, no hunger, development, health, and well-being, sustainable cities, climate action, and life on land. And so today I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about fires. As we approach the summer, it's definitely on a lot of people's minds, I know. And those in the Western United States and Australia and other places around the world where that's frequent, know firsthand the impacts of that. So I want to kind of break this down into during the fires, after the fire, and then the ways in which we and the community can kind of support and prepare for for fire season. So during the fire, it's critical that we track the location, the size, and the movement of the fire. And but fires create a lot of smoke, right? And it can be very challenging to pinpoint where the fire lines are and where the hot spots are. But one way we're able to combat that is with our shortwave infrared sensor on our WorldView 3 satellite. And this sensor captures the non-visible range of light, so with 8 unique bands that are able to do that. And what this essentially does is enable us to see through smoke. So with this, we can determine where the fire is actually burning, where it is already burned, and what vegetation remains untouched. And as you can see, if you kind of go maybe a slide or two ahead, the next slide will show kind of the smoke and how it's tough to tell what's going on there to see the actual ground. And then the next one to follow that will kind of illustrate the impact or the the unique visibility that our WorldView 3 SWIR sensors are able to give to first responders and firefighters. And this really helps them in allocating resources and saving time, protecting buildings, and inevitably lives. So reflecting on 2020, there was in California and many other places, there's a lot of displacement. And with the fires in 2020, we worked with Mapbox to feed a interactive SWIR map, and that kind of showed the evolving dynamics of the fire for displaced citizens to look back and kind of review the homes that they left behind and see if they were impacted. looking kind of transitioning to the aftermath of disasters, it's critical that we, to have the large area collections, and then also the AI and ML capabilities of being able to determine where damage has occurred. That helps with, the response teams. Oftentimes the conditions in these areas are not safe, and it's good to be able to do that from, a remote location, and to be able to send those emergency response efforts and other allocating budgets and resources accordingly. So kind of shifting to the the risk assessments beforehand. Now you can kind of take our imagery of areas and in regions of high risk and use that for kind of a vulnerability infrastructure analysis. Using our imagery and some AI ML models that we have, you can kind of run building and infrastructure detection, so buildings, roads, land use, land cover analysis, and layer that with a few other pieces of data, vulnerable vegetation that could act as fuel for fires, as well as drought and weather data, and layering those all together can help assess risk for humans, communities, and infrastructure. So both from the commercial side of things as well as from the humanitarian assistance and disaster response standpoint. And you can extrapolate this to other scenarios, to Tero's examples with hurricanes, flooding, and others. You can take elevation data and run models on that. So it's pretty interesting stuff. And from the commercial side of things, Tero mentioned insurance. That's definitely a big one. From the preparation and understanding the risk of associated policies, as well as from the energy standpoint, there are networks of infrastructure spider the world, and it's important to be able to routinely understand what might be going on there. And then from the telecommunications side, I mean, they have a very similar scenario where their infrastructure is spidering and around the landmass, and understanding where their vegetation might be getting close to their lines and potentially causing risk there is also important. So yeah, I think that kind of summarizes the fire example.
Yeah, unfortunately, we had tech issues. We weren't able to flip through the slides, but we'll provide the images to the audience after the webinar. We do have audience questions. I'll take a couple of questions right now, and then we can return, unless Tero, you had a direct comment to what Joe was saying.
Yeah, just wishing to reflect that actually, as you recall, that these images are somewhat different technically, so it's a good opportunity also, to combine them, and you can have these products like topping up each other.
Yeah, that's a great point. So the question is, Joe, you mentioned tracking vulnerability. So in addition to just tracking what's happening with the satellite images, we can assess vulnerability, but can we also actually prevent disasters from happening by using satellite images? Joe first, and then Tero.
Yeah, so one thing that comes to mind is so when you look at fires and the highest risk areas, a lot of times it's these kind of the communities that are on the edge of like the rural and open space and forests. And what they look at a lot of times there is these defensible spaces, so between buildings and the vegetation that surrounds it. And so for those that live in these regions, they're often given guidance, clear the brush, make sure there's a certain amount of space between that defensible space between your house and the fuels that are near it. And you need to do that on a pretty regular basis, depending on the climate and the vegetation there. So what you can do is take the imagery, you can, as I was kind of mentioning, run some analytics to identify all the structures in that area. You can determine, via kind of some measurements, how far away the vegetation is surrounding that, and then you can, depending on the type of agency or group you're with, you can, go about informing those at risk to try and help mitigate it.
Tero?
So the Iceye Generation 1 and Generation 2 satellites cannot prevent natural disasters from happening, but we are definitely working on our generation 3 and generation 4, and those will be preventing natural disasters from happening. So they will be really miraculous satellites. Yeah, but frankly speaking, things like eruption or loopholes which take place because of the climate change, we cannot prevent those from happening with satellites, but what we can do is that we can have a look into the change detection and make predictions out of that, so what's going to happen. So for instance, we can get the people out of there on time, or we can help to build the infrastructure to support the society over there. So that kind of help and assistance can really be conducted, and it's really important in the flooding areas. So where you can see what's happening, and you have the elevation models, and you know what's the depth of the water and things like that. So the measures which take place on site can be guided through the data available with the satellite images. So yes, we can do a lot of risk management and risk prevention with the help of satellite data.
Thanks. We're approaching the end of our time. I still wanted to ask Joe, I know you guys are doing, with the Open Data Program, you have a program in the developing countries as well that's related to COVID. Can you tell us about what you're doing there?
Yeah, sure. I'll keep it brief because I know I want to be sensitive of time. So, what we find many of us in the US are familiar with this. We had the census last year, and a lot of the developing world and even elsewhere globally, census data can be outdated. And when, things like a pandemic or, disease outbreak occur, or disaster for that matter, it's critical that you understand, how many people live where in your country or in your jurisdiction. And so, with our imagery and kind of some of the stuff that I've mentioned before, you're able to kind of assess the population densities, where people are located, and that really helps in establishing or guiding kind of policy, so lockdown policy in the instance of COVID-19, and as well as enforcement. So where are these high mobility areas? Where's the access to health facilities? So one project that we're working on in 2020 was providing kind of this baseline data with partners that supported the creation of dashboards and analysis for these policy and enforcement efforts. And one in particular was Sierra Leone, and those dashboards were available for experts, but also for the general public to kind of understand what was going on, which we found to be quite helpful.
Thanks. There is actually an audience questions about analysis. I'm going to ask both of you. Who does the analysis of the images? Joe, you can go first.
Yeah, great question. So there, oftentimes it's the organizations that we work with. They have their own in-house imagery analysts or GIS analysts, and they have very particular needs and use cases, and they're simply looking for data. On the other hand, we also have internal experts and analysts that help in the development of our products and solutions to meet evolving customer demand. So it kind of really depends on the organization that we're working with, as well as the application, and yeah, I think that's from our standpoint.
Tero?
So yeah, it depends on the needs of the customers. There are certain areas where we have an analytics team which works with our customers, and this is actually especially related to the natural disasters and flooding. So we have our own flooding solutions team which helps the authorities and insurance companies in flooding situations. Then in some other areas we have smaller analysis teams and also partners. So for instance, in terms of forestry and vegetation, we work with our analytics partners who provide then like the analytics part for the customer. And some customers wish to do the analysis themselves. So they just use the imagery and raw data and conduct their own analysis. So all these three options are available.
Great. I'm going to take one more question, and then we need to start wrapping up. This is for both of you. Tero, you can, since you have the mic open, do you track metrics for how you contribute to the specific UN SDGs for any of the SDG targets? And if you do track, what are they and how were they determined?
So there is no current tracking we would do, like categorizing the services we provide for each of the areas and each of the customers. Like the UN Sustainable Development Goals, as discussed here in this specific area, so the goals number 13, 14, and 15. But out of the total product portfolio and the total services which we serve for each of the clients, such a categorization for the moment is not in place.
Does Maxar track the metrics for how you support the UN goals?
I wish Madison was here. Similar to Tero, I don't believe we have specific metrics for each of the use cases. However, I believe we have. So last year was the first time we released a impact report, and I've been told that our 2021 is coming out soon. And within that, there's some metrics as it relates to the amount of, but it's more based on what we're providing versus trying to measure specific outcomes. That can be a little bit challenging, but certainly the impact report that we provide is a good reference to the kind of spectrum of support that we're able to provide to address each of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And we actually also have an ebook that we did a little while back that kind of outlines each individual one and how we support that. But from metrics can be challenging. I think that's probably a future state that we're hoping to get to, but probably will take some time.
All right, I think our time is up. I will give you an opportunity to say a free word. For example, is there anything exciting coming up from either of your companies or anything that you want to convey to the audience today?
Lots of news, so you be aware, and as expressed during the presentations already, so there are forthcoming launches, and as you recall, the previous launch, which was just in the end of January, was with the Falcon 9 X Rideshare, and the launch took place from the US. So have a look into what's going to happen within the next couple of months. Over those interesting product developments will take place. There will be new products available, going down to different types of interferometry issues, and some new things will be there for the Santa Claus to bring in. So the Santa Claus comes with the reindeers with the Iceye satellite to the US and brings some news.
All right, excellent. Joe, what's new with Maxar this year?
Love it. Yeah, I mean, on a similar front, launches are always great, cool, exciting. So, those are in our near future. We're very excited about that. It's been a long road, developing these satellites, and so we're really excited to get them launched on orbit. Additionally, as I mentioned, keep an eye out if there's many questions around this topic and specifically the SDGs. So, as I mentioned, keep an eye on our website. We'll be probably pushing that 2020 impact report very soon, and you can kind of read up on more details for that.
That is the perfect ending for the topic today. Thank you, our panelists. You dedicated your time and effort today and also preparing for this, so I'm very appreciative of this. And also for the audience, thank you so much for joining. As mentioned, the recording will be sent out to you in a few days. Thank you, everyone, and you have a good day and good evening. Bye.
Thank you very much. Have a great weekend and a great day. Thank you.